In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create a table center, something that even a beginner could do. And it's not only going to brighten up your table, but it's going to impress your friends and family. I'm going to be using a variety of pastel shades to really bring the outside in. So let's get creative with today's design. So welcome back to today's exciting tutorial where I'm going to show you how you can make a seasonal table centre for your dining room or for a wedding. So my name is Sharon and I'm thrilled to be back today to teach you how to make a table centrepiece that really captures the essence of the season. So whether you're hosting a family barbecue or you're having a romantic dinner or you just want to bring some of the seasonal flowers into your home, this arrangement is perfect for any occasion. So let's get ready and dive straight in. Now if you're a home arranger and you don't have all the tools and equipment that a professional florist has, then you can just think about using a household plate or a saucer to create your design. Now I've got some green florist foam. I've got roughly about 1/3 of a block and you can purchase that at most hobby stores or florist shop. I've prepared it by soaking it in a bucket of water. I've cut it to a suitable size, and if you're at home and this design isn't going to be moved from one location to another, then it's perfectly adequate just to sit it on a plate or a tray. For today's video, I'm going to hold it down with some Oasis tape. So this is a product that you'll find most florists will use to hold their mechanics into place. And you can buy it quite easily off Amazon, or you could get it from your local hobby or florist shop. But what that does is it prevents your foam from sliding around and it really anchors it into place. Now I'm going to look today at making a sort of round shape table centre, but you could make this long and thin, and it's a design that you're going to look at from all around, so we're going to be working on it from different directions. And today I don't have a great deal of foliage because I know that at home, if you're arranging for yourselves, you often can't get hold of a selection of greenery, so I'm just going to work with a choice of flowers, bearing in mind that the larger your piece of foam is, the more you have to cover and the more flowers and foliages that you're inevitably going to have to use. So what I am going to do is just use a knife to chamfer off a little bit of the edge of my foam, and that's really beneficial if you don't have any foliage to cover your mechanics. So as a commercial florist or a hobby style flower arranger, you're really looking to make sure that all of this foam or wire mesh or whatever mechanic you use is completely covered. We don't want to see that at the end of the design. Now it is bluebell season here in the UK, so I do have some bluebells that I've picked from my own garden. The rest of my flowers are really materials that a commercial florist would use. But if you're lucky enough to have a good garden, you might be growing some seasonal anemones, and I couldn't resist these this week. Aren't they just amazing? Colours on them are so fantastic. And I don't think I've done anything in a lilac colour for quite a while. So what I'm going to start by doing is using the more open heads quite low down on my floral foam. They're almost going to act like my foliage would in covering my base material. Some of these soft stemmed flowers are quite weak, and it might help you just to insert a small kebab stick or cocktail stick. In my case, it's going to be a small florist wire just into the base there of the stem. Doesn't do the flower any harm, but it gives you a bit of extra strength when you're inserting those flowers into the foam. I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm just going to cut it a little shorter, insert that wire into the base, and that gives me a much stronger stem to push into the foam. So what I'm looking to do is to use a couple more of the larger, more open flowers just around that base structure to help cover my foam. And I'm looking to create a round sort of shape design, so I'm almost going to follow the shape of my little saucer, and that's really going to give me a good start. If you're new to floral design, I would suggest that if you're making a round arrangement, you keep turning it and you keep looking at it from a different position. Otherwise you'll find that inevitably the design will end up with more flowers on one side compared to the other. Just lost my wire there for a moment. So that's my sort of starting point. If we look at the design as it is now, you'll see that I need another anemone in this section here. And then what I'm going to do is move on to my next flower, almost building up layers of flowers. If you had greenery, then I would suggest and recommend at this point you would add some small amounts of foliage into the base as well, because that will really help cover that foam quite quickly. But I'm going to introduce another flower. Technically it's probably a summer flower if it's in its true season, but this is scabious. This one is called Candy Scoop, and I was hoping to be able to grow some of these in my garden for myself this year. But the seeds aren't looking too good. It's been very cold, quite wet and miserable here in the UK, and everything seems to have a little bit of a slow start. So I'm always really grateful for the growers that we have access to abroad who can provide us with all these amazing varieties of flowers. Now the reason I'm not using that one is because it has a little bit of an interesting shape, and I think that would work better further out in the arrangement. So I'm going to add one more of that little Candy Scoop quite close to my floral foam, and then I'm going to start extending out. Now you still can see quite a bit of the foam, but I'm hoping that as I progress and make the design a bit taller and a bit wider, we will eventually cover all those pieces. So to help me cover the foam a little bit more, I've got some large white carnations. These are really going to help to cover those large pieces of foam. And again, I'm just looking to fairly evenly distribute them. It's always a tricky one. Foliage is hard to get hold of. It can be expensive if you have to buy it from a local florist shop. But then if you don't have foliage, you have to replace it with flowers. It's a little bit of a catch-22. Another way of making sure that you've got less foam to cover is to use a raised container, and then your floral foam can sit inside. But it's all a learning curve, and it's always a different process for different styles of arranging. Now I have a really popular rose. This one is called Quicksand. It's a sort of very dusky pink. Goes quite well with beiges and brown colours, also works really well with pinks. And I'm going to start quite low again with some, and I'm going to work my way out, extending the design out. So we almost have this mass concentration in the centre, and then we get taller as we move away from the focal point. And quite often when I'm using roses, I like to keep the guard petals on because they give you an interesting colour combination. But today the Quicksand, because it's a pale rose, I'm not going to use that one because I've picked up the wrong variety. The Quicksand, because it's a pale rose, it can get damaged quite quickly. So I have removed a lot of the petals off the outside of these ones. So I think it's one of those things that you've got to judge by each individual flower. If you think it's damaged and you think the petals are looking a bit sad and a bit damaged, then very gently remove them from the outside. If you think they look quite good and you love the colour links or the colour combinations, then leave them on and see how you go. There's of course nothing worse than looking at a design where the roses are very badly damaged. So just be mindful of the fact that you can remove the petals, the outer guard petals in particular. And you can see I'm just building up. It's a very current, very fashionable style of arranging at the moment to use these very tiered levels. It's something that we're seeing a huge amount of coming through in current wedding work, where we're looking for this very natural sort of style of arranging. So we've got those different layers. Now I'm going to tuck in some of the heather that you've seen me use quite a lot. You might be fortunate enough to have this in your garden at the moment because it is a seasonal springtime flower, and you will get it later in the autumn if you've got an autumn flowering heather as well. But I'm going to use this just to give me a little bit of added texture and a slightly different shape in flower. If you haven't got heather like this, then this is a great opportunity to use the filler flowers like Gypsophilia or September flower. It really helps to add in a bit of a softness and what we would refer to as a transitional material, and the colour link is just superb with all of the other flowers. I'm working out from the centre, trying to evenly distribute that same colour and texture all the way throughout the arrangement, because it is a round arrangement that you're going to see from all directions. Now what I'm going to do is put some longer flowers in that we've already got based down low. So I'm going to add in some more of the scabious and some more of the anemone. And this is why I kept back the flowers that have that more quirky shape to them, this one in particular, because I felt that that little bit of movement was going to really benefit the taller parts of my arrangement. So I'm going to keep adding the different varieties, the different colours of the anemones, remembering that if need to, you can use a wire there at the base to give a little bit of extra support. With an arrangement that's for a table, you've got to remember that people are going to be sitting opposite one another. So don't go too high and too formal and too full here at the top. It's okay to have some wispy, soft flowers, but don't block the eye movement across the table, especially if this is something for a wedding. You want to encourage conversation across the table and people to chat as the wedding celebration goes on. So as I'm progressing, we've got less and less of the foam visible, and a little bit of greenery from the roses has also helped. And I mentioned before that this is a very fashionable style of arranging. It's sort of come from the Georgian period where everything had this very loose, whimsical feeling. And we follow this through in bridal designs as well. And if you're looking to learn about hand-tied bridal work, we have got a course starting in May, which is going to introduce you to 5 different styles of wedding hand-tied bouquets suitable for brides and for bridesmaids. And one of the designs that we'll cover will be this very whimsical, very fashionable style of arrangement that's current at the moment. And if you want information on that, you just need to pop over to the website. Now I'm going to introduce some of the bluebells, and really take a bit of time to look at the individual shapes. If they're bending naturally over to one side, then it's really lovely to incorporate them so that they're showing off that little curve. If they're straighter, place them more towards the centre, but you're just keeping going, really incorporating the different colours, the different flowers and textures all throughout the arrangement. We'll have a little spin of that all the way around for you to see. Really pretty, really quite striking. And you can see how you can create a design without foliage, but still maintaining that full coverage of the floral foam there at the base. Now I do have white carnations at the base, so just to give a little bit of a colour link between the carnations at the base, I'm going to introduce a softer whitey cream colour of the butterfly ranunculus, and this is really going to give that soft look that I'm trying to achieve. Remember also with the table arrangement that you don't really want to come too wide, because there's going to be lots of crockery and cutlery on that table, and you need to leave space in between. This design would look absolutely gorgeous if you raised it up onto a cake stand. So if you've got a glass cake stand or a plain white one, then raising this up off the table would look really quite spectacular. Now my final flower is going to be the lilac veronica, and if you were part of my Facebook group, so it's Sharon's Innovations group, and that's part of Facebook. If you're part of that group with me, then you would have seen a live video where I had a delivery that included these gorgeous lilac veronica. And when they arrived, they were looking quite sad and they were flopped over and they didn't look like they were going to perk up at all. And I showed a few tricks on how to get them conditioned properly. And the following day, as soon as they'd taken up water, they were back to normal and back to life. And this is probably about 10 days later, and they're looking really quite fantastic. So let's go with our final few pieces, remembering that I want that sort of massed concentration of flowers towards the centre, and this very whimsical placement of flowers on the top. I think we're down to our final 2, the last 2 of my veronica. And this is a really good time for me to mention that during these tutorials, you will often hear me talk about the elements and principles of design, their balance, contrast, dominance, rhythm and repetition. And if you're not familiar with exactly what these terms mean and how they apply to flower arranging. Then pop over to Etsy. I'll link it in the description box below, and I've got a little tutorial handout that you can purchase as a digital download that will really help you understand floral design. And what I'm also doing for each design that we create, I'm putting an instructional guide over on the Etsy shop as well, so that you can purchase it if you want to keep some written references for all the different designs that I create. So I'm really pleased with how that's come together. That's going to look fantastic on the centre of a table. It's really going to cheer up any guests that you have. Thanks as ever for joining me for another tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell if you want to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. You can join me on my Facebook group. You can pop over to the website to see what courses we're currently running. And of course, there's those digital downloads over on Etsy to help you learn more and understand exactly what I'm talking about. So thank you as ever for watching. I look forward to seeing you for the next tutorial, and goodbye for now.